Okay, student, good afternoon. In fact, it's still good morning. So let's start with today's session. This is going to be our session number 4. And in today's session, I'll be going to look into various important fiscal policy issues. So I have covered almost all required inputs related to monetary policy as of now. There are a couple of issues like financial stability report on trend and progress in banking, and monetary policy report. The summaries I'll be going to give it to you later on because there are hardly one or two important terms that need to be inculcated. Towards the end of the economy sections, I'm going to give you the important terminologies, and in that terminology, I'll finish rest of the relevant stuff related to monetary policy. But as of now, I've covered major part. Now, for your current issues, of course. Now, let's look into some important fiscal policy issues. These are the important headlines for today's session. This is something I'll be going to cover in today's session. Topic number 1, divergence between real GDP and nominal GDP in India. Why there is a stark divergence between the real GDP and nominal GDP in India. Topic number 2, base year change. It is now almost certain that by the year 2026 there is going to be a base year change in the GDP. Base year change in GDP. Government has already appointed one committee, 126-member committee, which is going to propose certain important things related to the base year change in the GDP itself. Topic number 3, base year change in WPI, and these are proposed. These are proposed. It means definitely it is going to take place in the upcoming financial year. But nowadays we are reading article related to the base year change. So base year change in WPI, a Ramesh Chand committee has already been appointed to look into the nitty-gritties of a base year change in the WPI itself. Apart from that, why India is having a problem of high food inflation? Why we are always suffering from a high food inflation in our country? Why we always have a massive divergence between CPI and WPI? Divergence between real GDP, nominal GDP, base year change in GDP, base year change in WPI, food inflation issue in our country, CPI, WPI divergence. These are the 4 issues. Apart from that, few more issues like, are we about to enter into a middle income trap? Is India about to enter into a middle income trap? It's a very common phenomena that you are reading it on a regular basis, that as our GDP has been progressing, it's in within 1 decade, we have almost had a 100% jump in our total GDP. So are we entering, or are we all set to enter into the middle income trap? What all things we have to do to get rid of it? So issue of middle income trap. Apart from that, a very important survey, household consumption expenditure survey, household consumption expenditure survey 2022, 2023 and 23-24. It's a survey being conducted by the National Statistical Organization. It's basically a quinquennial survey, once in a 5-year. But unfortunately, in the year 2017, government did the survey but didn't disclose the data. They've decided to once again do the survey on a fresh basis. They've released the data for 22, 23, 23, 24, which are very relevant for us. So household consumption expenditure survey. And rising dollar index, rupee depreciation. Throughout the year, we have heard news related to depreciation of rupee depreciation, dollar rupee swap, a step to control the fall in depreciation of rupee. Reserve Bank of India did the dollar rupee swap. And last but not the least, in the month of August, there was a topic related to the foreign exchange issue itself, yen carry trade. Yen carry trade. Especially this topic, carry trade. It's a very essential one, carry trade. So these are all the issues, student, that I'm supposed to discuss in today's session. I think I'll be going to cover maximum. So let me just give you a recall. The topics are there in front of you. Divergence between real GDP and nominal GDP, base year change in GDP, base year change in WPI, food inflation, divergence between CPI and WPI, why often we see divergence, and these topic. Are we entering into middle income trap? Household consumption expenditure survey, rising dollar index, dollar rupee swap, and yen carry trade. I hope you all are set to look into all these topics. So without wasting any time, let's start with the topic number 1 itself. Do we need to change our base year for calculation of GDP? Answer is definitely yes, no doubt about that. But let's look into certain correlative topic which are equally important. Do we really need to have a change in the base year of GDP? It's a highly essential topic. When it comes to the GDP calculation, there are already some doubts related to India's GDP. Are they overestimating it? Are they overcalculating it? We'll address those particular doubts. But at the same time, question number 1, do we need to change a base year for calculation of GDP? That's the question number 1. And the question number 2, which I guess is more important to set the tune of this class. Why there is a massive amount of divergence between nominal GDP and real GDP? Why we are having a situation of huge amount of divergence between a nominal GDP and real GDP? Let me give you one example. Student, in the year 2022, our nominal GDP was around 15-16%, not exactly exact number, but somewhere around on a high basis of around 14% to 15% was our nominal GDP. And our real GDP was around close to 8%. I'm not saying that this is the exact number, you can search it out. So somewhere around 8.5% was our real GDP growth, and nominal GDP was 16%. Then in the year 24, our nominal GDP drastically reduced to almost 10%, but our real GDP is still hovering around 6.5, approximately 6.5, 6.8, or whatever figure is there. So my question is, nominal GDP has been decreased at a very rapid pace manner, but why isn't the impact onto the real GDP? So why there is such a stark difference? Is there any divergence? Answer is yes. But why there is a divergence? Why exactly there is a huge divergence? And last but not the least, are we over calculating or overestimating our GDP? Are we doing some jugglery in the calculation of GDP? Or is there something else that we need to address outrightly? So this is a very pertinent question based upon which we are going to address this particular issue. So let's handle this particular issue to be very precisely. So student, the whole story of India's GDP data debate is started in the year 2006 itself. In the year 2006, a newly appointed National Statistical Commission, I hope you have heard about it, National Statistical Commission, they've recommended that from now onwards, we should move towards the GDP calculation with the consideration of calculation of GVA. Why we have moved towards the calculation of GVA rather than the GDP at the factor cost alone? Answer was almost all OECD country calculate their GVA for every sector and they calculate their GDP at the rate market price. Almost all OECD country, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, it's a group of rich countries, it's a rich country club, and this particular club, which includes the Western countries of Europe, the Western European countries, and of course North American countries. These are the countries which actually calculates their GDP based upon the market price, and they calculate GVA for every single sector. And since India was progressing at a rapid pace, so Raghuram Rajan had recommended, National Statistical Commission recommended, that we need to calculate GDP based upon the calculation of GVA in every sector, and finally we should move towards the market price. No issues with that, because if India really wants to become a part of the rich club, or we want to become a part of the big boys club, then we need to align our GDP calculation with them. And after all, that's what IMF and World Bank is also suggesting, because IMF on a regular basis publish its World Economic Outlook, and they really want to have a data synchronization. They want to have a data synchronization from the developed world as well as the developing world. So therefore, they've recommended as well. So based upon these things, student, we've shifted our base year in the year 2015-16. We've adopted GVA methodology. We've decided to adopted the GVA methodology in the year 2015-16, and we've decided to change our base year from 2004-5 to 11-12. No issues with that, because time and again we need to change our base year as well. But the moment we've decided to change the base year and at the same time shifting our focus to the GVA, there are certain issues that has been raised time and again by various economists. Let's address those major issues. So from 2006 to all the way to 2015 and 16, a lot many things has gone through sea changes when it comes to GVA and GDP. Let's address it one by one. So first of all, just for the sake of our flow of our class, let's look into the difference between the GDP and the GVA. First of all, what exactly is GDP? GDP is basically monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country. It's a monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country. Monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country. Whereas GVA is value added by each sector. Value added by each sector. Every sector value addition is going to get calculated. So let me teach you in this manner, or let me tell you in this manner. You'll be going to divide the country as a unit. You'll be going to consider country as a unit, and then you'll be going to divide country into different sectors. So if we say GDP, so GDP is basically accumulation of all the various units which are working in a country and the monetary value of total goods and services produced in a country. I hope you all have gone through basic fundamentals of the GDP. So this statement is not alien to you. After all, it's a crash course. So I hope I need not to explain you basic fundamentals again and again. But for the sake of the class, I have to revise certain things. So GDP is monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country. Whereas GVA is basically, in GVA, the country is a unit, but that particular unit is going to divide it into various subunit, various sector, primary, secondary, tertiary, and within the primary, different sector. And for every sector, you are going to look into value addition. How much value has been added by this particular sector? Let me explain you in this manner. For example, let's say you are a manufacturer and you bring a raw material. So when you bring a raw material, let's say at the rate of 1,000 rupees, and then you sold it into the market for 1,500 rupees. So your total purchase was 1,000, you are selling it for 1,500 rupees. So 1,500 rupees is the final value. But this is not the value that you are adding it. You are getting a 500 rupees in your pocket, but that 500 rupees is actually also including your input as well. Whatever your value addition is there. So for example, you bring raw material at the rate 1,000 rupees, then you decided to add 200 rupees value addition to it. Maybe asking for few laborers, maybe doing some different thing, maybe doing some innovation in that particular raw material, and then you produced a finished good and then you sold it into the market, which includes your profit as well. So your total money that you are getting in your pocket after selling the product is 500 rupees, but your actual value addition was 200 rupees and 300 rupees was your profit. So whatever you have added extra, that extra need to be calculated for every sector. Therefore, it is known as value addition, gross value addition. So what is gross? Summation or adding each and everything. What is value addition? Value added by each sector. So when you are going to value addition by each sector, then once you are going to add each and every sector, then you will move towards the final value which will turn out to be GDP. तो अगर GDP से GVA निकालना है तो जो जो हर स्टेज पर वैल्यू एडिशन हुई है वो सब आपको निकालनी पड़ेगी. एंड इफ यू वांट टू फाइंड आउट द exact GDP, then you have to add value addition for every sector. Then you will move towards the GDP itself. So GDP is nothing. It's basically a monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country, where it is the value added by individual sector itself. One more important point. It shows us the health of overall economy. It shows us health of individual sector. And I need not to explain you, this definition is more easier. Individual sector, if you are going to add up, it will turn out to be the input of the overall economy itself. One more important point, this GDP actually shows the demand side of the economy. This GDP actually shows the demand side of the economy, whereas GVA is basically shows the supply side of the economy. Why exactly demand side of the economy? Because monetary value is finally paid by us, the consumer. And whatever consumer are paying, it is basically a demand that we are generating. And whatever value that are being added by the producer, the wholesale dealer and all these things, it's the supply. It is actually dependent upon the supply. So GDP is basically demand side of the economy. GVA is basically supply side of the economy. And GVA is basically referring to the individual sector. So student, based upon these definition, we've decided to shift our gears from GDP to GVA. Of course, earlier also we calculate GDP, right now also we calculate GDP, but right now we are actually adding up value addition in each sector and then we add it up cumulatively to find the GDP at the rate of market price. Let's look into certain other details so that I can justify these important points itself. Look student, in a very simple manner, factor cost, basic price or basic cost and market price are three important stages to calculate the GDP. Earlier, we were only calculating GDP at factor cost. Earlier, we were only calculating GDP at factor cost. We were not calculating GDP at market price. Why so? क्यों नहीं करते थे? Because student, India's tax structure is so complicated that once the product is going to get created in a factory, then after factory, it goes towards the transportation company. From transportation company, it will go towards one district to other district, one state to other district. And during that transportation, so many taxes will add up. So many toll tax will add up. The driver transportation cost is going to add up. Fuel cost is going to add up. And after that, so many subsidies is going to get deducted. And once it is going to reach the mandi or the wholesale prices, then the wholesale dealer is going to add his profit, his taxes, and then it will move towards the retailer or the retail shop. And from the retail shop, it is going to land up into my pocket and I'm going to pay a heavy GST as well. So our tax structure was so complicated. Our economists were earlier having the apprehension of deciding GDP at market price because they believe India's tax structure is extremely complicated. It's very difficult to find out value addition in each and every sector. Better stick your guns to only the factor cost. So earlier we were calculating GDP at factor cost. Now we are calculating GDP at market price. Obviously बात है, फैक्ट्री के बाहर, फैक्ट्री में जो माल बनता होता है उसे फैक्टर कॉस्ट कहते हैं. मार्केट में जब बिकता है तो उसे मार्केट प्राइस पे बिकना कहते हैं। इसमें कई सारे टैक्सेस ऐड हो जाते हैं। अब हमारी जीडीपी में टैक्स ऐड होके इंक्रीमेंट शो होता है एंड देयरफॉर आवर जीडीपी सीम्स लाइक अ ग्रोइंग अप because we are actually looking into the implicit value added by the taxes as well. Because after all, our primary concern with GDP these days is monetary value rather than production increment. Let's look into detail. What is factor cost? Factor cost means a standard. Have you all heard about one standard language in economics? The factors of production are land, labor, and capital, isn't it? So if a company is producing a product, let's say a car company is producing a car in a factory. So what type of expenditure they are going to get incurred? Number one, factor cost include factors of production. Let me write. Factor cost means all factors of production. It will include rent, land, labor, capital. It will include wage. So here comes land, here comes labor. It will include capital, fixed capital cost, or whatever cost that they will going to incur, capital. So here comes your land, labor, capital, plus they are also going to add their own profit, because by the time a product is going to get manufactured, the moment it is going to come outside the factory, it will also going to have the total profit of the manufacturer as well. So we used to calculate GDP till 2011-12 basis, or later on up to the 2015-16, we were only concerned about the factor cost. Land, labor, capital cost, total profit added up by the manufacturer itself. Now student, अब ये जो प्रोडक्ट है बन के तैयार हो गया है और जो ट्रक है उस पर लोडेड हो गया है, उसमें मैन्युफैक्चरर का प्रॉफिट भी ऐड, अब ये बाहर निकलने के लिए तैयार है, मार्केट में आने के लिए तैयार है। बट मार्केट में आने से पहले कुछ चीज़ ऐड करनी पड़ेगी, बिकॉज ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन a manufacturer must have paid a huge amount of production taxes as well. He must have paid a huge amount of production tax, and he must have got the benefit of production subsidy as well. So production subsidy is not going to incur the cost. After all, it is going to save the overall cost. So production subsidy minus and production tax is going to get added. What is production tax? Custom duty, excise duty, import duty, all types of taxes that he is going to incur during the course of production, and all types of benefit that he is going to incur during the course of production, which is known as subsidy. Subsidy is going to not add up the cost, it is going to deduct the cost. Production tax is going to add up the cost. ये सब ऐड हो जाएगा, फिर फैक्ट्री से माल बाहर निकलेगा, then it will enter into the basic price arena. What is basic price, student? Basic price means something, the price which is being kept by the producer. For example, I would rather say it's a factory gate price. I'm right. Should I write in red marker? It's a factory gate price. Now, what exactly is factory gate price? Factory gate price includes production cost of the company plus all taxes minus subsidies, and of course the profit that has been kept by the manufacturer. Now, this is the basic price. Now, this basic price will get this product from the factory gate. It is now going to enter into the market. It is now entering into the wholesale market, and once it will reach the wholesale market, and then subsequently from wholesale market to the retail market, the market price will include all the basic price plus product tax, isn't it? Basic price plus all the product tax are going to get add up now, because production tax is custom duty, excise duty and all, and product tax is GST, because after all you are selling product into the market now, so you have the GST. So product tax, and of course if there are certain subsidy which are going to deduct it from the overall market price itself. So minus product subsidy. So this is the chain of calculating. This is the chain of calculating, student, the GDP in our country. Earlier, we were least bothered about these three tricky things: production tax, production subsidy, product tax, product subsidy. Sorry, here it should be subsidy. So earlier, we were least concerned about these two things: production tax, product tax, and we are not worried about basic price, market price. Nowadays, we are. And student, one more important thing: from factory price, from the factor cost to all the way to the market price, in every stage, there are a lot of dealers, mid dealers, wholesalers, retailers who keep on adding something, For example, if a product ended up into the wholesale mandi, then from wholesale mandi, the wholesale mandi person will make sure that the product is going to safe. He'll going to do more packaging, and he will ask his vendor to take care of that particular product. That particular product will land up into the market. So wholesale dealer also is going to add certain value to the product. If this is the product being produced by the factory, and if it is going to end up into the wholesale mandi, the mandi person, the wholesale person is also going to add certain value. Those value need to be calculated. That's what GVA is all about, because GVA is all about value addition by individual sectors. So that particular GVA phenomena being added up over here. So what exactly is GVA? As I've already shared with you, now writing the formula for it. So GVA equals to total value of sale or total output whatever the person is selling, total value of sale minus whatever cost he has incurred during the value addition, cost of intermediate consumption, cost of intermediate goods. This is the standard formula of the GVA. For individual sector, this is how we try to find it out. Isn't it? टोटल वैल्यू ऑफ सेल 1000 में लिया था, 1500 में बेच रहा है, लेकिन 200 रुपए का उसने खुद भी एडिशन किया है. सो टोटल वैल्यू ऑफ सेल माइनस द कॉस्ट ऑफ इंटरमीडिएट प्रोडक्ट्स. 1000 पे मंगवाया, 1500 पे बेचा तो 1500 minus the intermediate goods is 200 rupees. 300 rupees is what he is going to get it, and 200 rupees is the value addition that is being there. So GVA is total value of sale, total output minus the cost of intermediate good. Cost of intermediate goods is been calculated to actually calculate for specifying the total value addition by each sector. Each sector means फैक्ट्री से निकलकर जब बेसिक प्राइस पर आया होगा, फिर यहाँ पे ट्रांसपोर्टर ने कुछ वैल्यू ऐड करी होगी, फिर होलसेल डीलर ने कुछ वैल्यू ऐड करी होगी, फिर रिटेलर ने कुछ वैल्यू ऐड करी होगी, फिर जाके कस्टमर के हाथ में आएगा. सो वी नीड टू कैलकुलेट वैल्यू इन ईच एंड एवरी सेक्टर. दैट्स व्हाट द GVA is all about. Now this is the standard learning of the GVA itself. Now let's convert it into formula. So let's look into the formula itself. So what I've told you, GVA is all about value addition in each and every sector. So let's look into each and every sector. So first of all, let's remember this one. So first of all, GVA, gross value addition in the factor cost. Whatever value addition done by the manufacturer. Manufacturer is bringing the raw material, and whatever expenditure he is doing during the course of manufacturing, that's going to be the GVA by him. And GVA by him would be जितने में मंगवाया, जितने में बेचा, बीच में उसने जो भी value addition किया वो निकाला जाता है. So it includes his raw material cost, that would include his raw material cost plus mixed income. I hope you know what is mixed income. If you are not aware about it, just listen to it. Mixed income means income which includes the working hours payment of the Malik, working hour payments of the manufacturer as well. Because most of the units in our country are those run by self-employed people. तो एक गले की दुकान में मालिक भी बैठ रहा है, लेबर भी बैठ रहा है. अगर लेबर को 8,000 रुपये मिल रहे हैं तो मालिक के भी 16,000 बनते, तो उसको भी ऐड कर लिया गया. सो दैट्स मिक्स्ड इनकम. एंड आफ्टर दैट रॉ मटेरियल कॉस्ट, मिक्स्ड इनकम, ऑपरेटिंग सरप्लस. operating surplus. Now, how would you define the operating surplus? Operating surplus means profit before all type of interest and charges. After all, interest and charges will come towards the final stage, but during the course of the manufacturing itself, operating surplus primarily means profit before charges and interest. Because here we are not adding taxes, we are not adding charges, we are not adding any type of thing. So here it is only his profit, whatever profit he is believing कि भाई 1200 का माल बन गया 300 रुपये प्रॉफिट पे बेचूंगा, तो that's operating surplus. Then if he is going to sell it out at 1500 rupees, he have to give production taxes as well. So later on we'll be going to add the production taxes. So raw material, mixed income, operating surplus, plus one very important thing, and that is the fixed income of those machinery that has been involved in production processes. So now comes the next one, fixed capital cost. So what is fixed capital cost or fixed capital consumption, whatever you want to write? Fixed capital consumption is more appropriate. For example, if there is one machine having 5 years of shelf life and it is costing 10 lakh rupees. So first year 2 lakh rupee, second year 2 lakh rupee, 3 year 2 lakh rupee, fourth year 2 lakh rupee, so on and so forth. So if machine is having a total value of 100 and it is being consumed for a period of 10 year only. So every year you are consuming 10% of 100, which is 10 rupees. So that is going to be fixed capital. So all these things, when they are going to add up, it will turn out to be GVA at the rate of factor cost. अब क्या होगा, ये माल बन गया, अब माल बन के फैक्ट्री के बाहर निकलने वाला है, तो फैक्ट्री के बाहर निकलेगा तो उसके पहले प्रोडक्शन टैक्स ऐड हो जाएगा और सब्सिडी माइनस हो जाएगी. सो स्टूडेंट, कम्स द सेकेंड स्टेज, GVA at basic price. Comes the second stage, GVA at basic price. So what is GVA at basic price? Do the backward integration. GVA at basic price means we have to first of all calculate GVA at factor cost, add these thing and you'll come to the basic price. So GVA at basic price is GVA at factor cost plus production tax minus production subsidy. So that's going to be GVA at basic price. Now once GVA at basic price means factory gate price. Now from factory gate price we have to move towards the market. अब माल फैक्ट्री से निकलकर, पुणे से निकलकर दिल्ली आ रहा है, तो उसकी कॉस्ट इनकर्ड होगी, और जब दिल्ली आएगा और दिल्ली में रिटेलर के पास आएगा तो वो मार्केट प्राइस अब वो रिटेलर के पास आएगा, एंड वंस इट इज गोइंग टू कम टू द रिटेलर विच इज द लास्ट चेन, एंड once it is going to get the retailer is going to give the monetary value of it. That monetary value of goods and the services that has been incurred so far is known as GDP. Let's say there is only one production in the country, and that is with this marker. So if this marker is being produced in a factory, once it is going to get produced in a factory, it is factor cost. Once it is going to laden at the factory gate, it is known as basic price, and once it is going to end up into the retailer hand, it is going to be known as market price, and this is market price is what the people like me will be going to pay it up. So next stage would be final, GDP at the rate of market price. Because at the last stage, we are not going to add GVA at the last stage, we are going to calculate the monetary value of that good and services that has gone through factory gate and basic price. So GDP at market price add कर देते हैं, GVA at basic price plus, as you are already aware, here we are going to add the product tax and the product subsidy. So plus the product tax minus the, so this is the basic fundamentals. I have to be damn sure about it The moment I am going to be very comfortable with this one, it would become very, oh, sorry. यहाँ थोड़ा cut हो गया, but I guess it's been manageable. Okay, I've committed a mistake over here. मैंने ये overlap कर दिया, ये इस तरीके से हो गया, कोई नहीं. So GDP at market price equals to GV at basic price plus product tax minus product subsidy. But this is the formula you have not been very comfortable. ये बेसिक प्राइस पर नहीं, हमने तो फैक्टर प्राइस से ही पढ़ना है इसको. तो कुछ नहीं करना है, इस फॉर्मूले को जीवीए बेसिक प्राइस को ये उठा के यहाँ डाल देते हैं. सो व्हाट इज गोइंग टू बी अल्टीमेटली, व्हाट इट इज गोइंग टू बी, इंस्टेड ऑफ जीवीए बेसिक प्राइस शुड आई राइट जीडीपी एट मार्केट प्राइस इक्वल टू जीवीए एट फैक्टर कॉस्ट प्लस प्रोडक्शन टैक्स प्लस प्रोडक्ट टैक्स माइनस प्रोडक्ट सब्सिडी माइनस प्रोडक्शन सब्सिडी. So you just need to do one thing. You should just cover this formula over here itself. Let me do the possibility of writing GDP at market price in this manner. It's going to be which manner? Instead of writing GVA basic price, I'm just putting GVA basic price formula over here, which is GVA factor cost plus production tax plus product tax minus production subsidy plus product subsidy. That's it. This is the actual formula. And cut it short. Instead of writing tax and subsidy over here, instead of writing production tax and tax and production subsidy and product subsidy, I should rather write cumulatively tax and subsidy. So finally, we'll end up over here. GDP at market price equals to GVA at factor cost plus taxes minus subsidy. This is what we are all aware about, student, plus total taxes minus all type of subsidy. Now, if you really want to calculate the GVA of individual sector, so you can do one thing, GDP at market price minus taxes plus subsidy, if you really want to calculate the GVA at the factor cost itself. So student, we have shifted our gears from only the factor cost to the market price. What all are the benefits of it so far? Why we have decided to do so? Let's look into it, all those important points which are very essential for our learning. But before I proceed ahead, what's the fundamental difference between the earlier formula and right now the current formula? The answer is there in front of us. Let's go back to the most important point, this one. Earlier we were only focusing on GDP at factor cost alone. We were not worried about the market price. We were only worried about these things, and we never worried about the taxes that has been incurred. But economists were having a belief that taxes do add up. Taxes do play a very important role in what the retailers are paying. Because after all, if things are dearer or if things are cheaper, it is all depend upon the kind of taxes that has been imposed on a particular product. And after all the OECD country also look into the implication of taxes onto the product. So why can't we be lagging behind? So we have decided to introduce this particular concept. Number one, most important point. That's the most important point. Earlier we were calculating GDP for producer price. Earlier we were calculating GDP for producer price. Right now we are calculating GDP for consumer price. After all, earlier we were only calculating with factor cost, and factor cost involved manufacturer or producer. So whatever price earlier been paid by the manufacturer, that was the producer price. Now we are putting focus onto the market price, that is basically a consumer price. So earlier GDP is focusing on producer price. Right now it is focusing on consumer price. One more important point, that's primarily essential one. These nuggets really matter a lot. You all are a studious student. After all, if you are doing my classes over here, preparing for this exam, I know you people are been burning midnight oil, but revising these things really matters a lot towards the end of the preparation. Last important difference before I look into some analysis. Last important point, student. GDP calculates change in volume of production. GDP calculates change in volume of production because it is all related to the factor cost. GDP calculates change in volume of production, whereas GVA calculates change in prices of production. So change in volume of production is what GDP, and change in value of those produced product is known as GVA. In a very summarized manner, if this is one marker and if I'm producing this marker in year 2025 and then in year 2026, so how many new markers have been produced is GDP, because GDP is interested in volume of production. Whereas GVA is all about what is the change in value of the cost or value of this particular marker this year compared to the previous year. So when you are only interested, when you are only interested in change in price, then your focus would be GVA. And when you are only interested in change in volume, then your primary focus would be GDP on the earlier basis. Now, what is Government of India primary focus right now? We are more interested in GVA. So we actually calculate GDP at the rate market price. So we are more interested in change in price. We are not interested in change in volume. And to be very honest, if we really want to become a manufacturing economy, we should rather put our primary focus on change in volume rather than change in value or prices of those products. So this is the primary difference. Therefore, I've told you earlier GDP was more interested with the producer price. Now it is more related to the consumer price. Income method, consumer price. Now, pertinent question, relevant question, why we've decided to change this formula? उससे मिला क्या, ये फॉर्मूला चेंज करके मिला क्या, हासिल क्या हुआ, what we have achieved? Let's look into it. So let's look into proper analysis, and some questions that I've asked, I'm going to answer it over here quite significantly. Analysis part. This analysis may be going to be very essential for our prelims preparation as well. So earlier, we were calculating GDP. Earlier, we were calculating GDP from producer price or change in volume point of view. Now, we are calculating GDP, rather say GVA. Now, we are calculating GDP from consumer price or change in value point of view. The stark difference is quite apparent over here. Here it is a change in value, here it is a change in volume, isn't it? Volume change, value change. Two major points. So that's point number one. Point number two. Point number two is very, very essential. Very, very essential. Earlier, we were only calculating GDP by looking into IIP and ASI data. Earlier, we were only calculating GDP from IIP and ASI data. IIP is basically Index of Industrial Production and ASI is Annual Survey of Industry. So we were calculating GDP only from IIP and ASI data. These days, we are calculating GDP from MCA 21 database, which is more broader compared to IIP and ASI. So IIP and ASI was for our earlier calculation. These days our calculation is MCA 21 database, and MCA 21 database is basically a database of 5 lakh companies in our country. What is MCA 21 database? Every company which has been registered in India have to submit its annual filing to one document of Ministry of Company Affairs known as MCA 21 database. अगर किसी कंपनी का कुंडली निकालना है, अगर किसी कंपनी का पूरा हिस्ट्री और उसकी फंक्शन निकालनी है, वेदर लिस्टेड और अनलिस्टेड, you can log on to MCA 21 database website and you can have access to all the important information of that particular company which is there in the registrar of companies. ROC डेटा पढ़ लो, ROC डेटा पढ़ोगे तो सारी कंपनीज का इतिहास पता चल जाएगा, हिस्ट्री पता चल जाएगा. So MCA 121 database is for listed as well as unlisted. So government is absolutely right that this GDP calculation is more appropriate because it includes listed as well as unlisted as well. So earlier we were only focusing on IIP, ASI data. Now we are focusing on MC21 database, listed and unlisted. Later on the third point. Nowadays we were focusing on more labor income as well as impact of social security. Earlier it was only about labor cost. These days it is also about not only labor cost but also social security. Why social security? Because these days companies are getting benefit of Provident Fund, Regulatory Development Authority data, simultaneously insurance data, IRDA data, simultaneously PFRDA, IRDA, SEBI data. There is one more, PFRDA, IRDA, SEBI. During the course of having that discussion, I'll be going to come across this particular point. EPFO, yes, EPFO data. Now, student, during the course of the production, the companies are also getting lot of benefit from the government, social security, pension schemes, gratuity scheme, pension schemes, and of course insurance scheme. SEBI data I have added up over here because till 1990s SEBI was not having its proper functionality. Nowadays SEBI is having a proper functionality which will give the real picture of all those small and medium enterprises, at the same time mid cap company, small cap company, large cap company, their total number of employees, and different type of data which are been related to various companies. Because in terms of the LODR obligation, I hope you know what is LODR obligation, listing and disclosure regulation. हर कंपनी को जो रजिस्टर्ड जो लिस्टेड है स्टॉक मार्केट में उन्हें LODR फॉलो करना पड़ता है, लिस्टिंग ऑब्लिगेशन एंड डिस्क्लोजर स्टैंडर्ड फॉलो करने पड़ते हैं. हर छोटी बड़ी बात बतानी पड़ती है इस एक्सचेंज को, एंड सेबी कीप्स अ कंप्लीट वॉच ओवर इट. सो impact of social security schemes can only be judged by these data: PFRDA data, IRDA data, SEBI data, EPFO data, and based upon which the impact of social security is going to be gauged. And our Ministry of Statistics and Programming Implementation had an idea that earlier we were only calculating the labor income. Now these days, apart from the labor income, we should also look into the social security data as well. So earlier it was only limited to the labor income. Now from now onwards, it's all about labor income plus other important data as well. So this is again a very stark difference. So what are the benefits, student? Earlier it was all about producer price, now it is consumer price. Earlier it was only about IIP, now it is MC21 database, and this one we were having more focus towards the labor income, social security. And of course, earlier, point number 4, earlier, no impact of taxes on earlier there was no impact of taxes calculation. Taxes were nowhere into the picture. But after all, if you are shifting your focus from producer price to consumer price, the tax is actually being paid by the consumer itself. Finally, we are the end user of the product. We are the one who is shelling out a massive amount of taxes. And that taxes is taking away our rupee from our pocket, but it is adding up to the GDP because money is having a circulation power as well. So, and it end up into the banking system as well. So, no impact of taxes. Earlier, that was a figure of no impact of taxes. These days, impact of taxes has been calculated. Earlier, taxes not add up to the GDP calculation. These days, taxes do add up to the GDP calculation. Point number 4. Now comes a very important point. Where is the problem in real GDP and nominal GDP divergence? let's look into the most important question that we really want to share over here. As I've shared with you, okay, GDP earlier was all about factor cost. It was all about factor cost. Now GDP is all about market cost or market price. Now, keeping these 5 things in my mind, since the word taxes has already been used, now keeping these 5 things in my mind, I think we are in a much better situation to right now handle this particular question, why there is a divergence between real GDP and nominal GDP. So let's look into this question. It's a very relevant question. Real GDP and nominal GDP divergence. ठीक है, real GDP and nominal GDP divergence. Let's address this question. So first of all, we all are aware about one very important point. What exactly is real GDP, student? Real GDP is output value at constant price. Output value, whatever that you are producing and selling it to the market, it should be calculated at constant price. Isn't it? Output value at constant price. And what do we mean by nominal GDP? Nominal GDP is output value or market value at nominal GDP is market value at current price. Current price. Now, nominal GDP, real GDP has one very huge difference, and that huge difference sometimes turn out to be a matter of divergence as well. One is related to constant price, one is related to current price. Forget about this definition. Let's look into, based upon this definition, let's look into some mathematical number which will become more easier for us to understand. Let's say India is only producing computer. Let's say in a country only computer is produced, computer have its own price as well, and they have certain value as well. So let's say in the year 2021, we have produced 10 computer, and let's say the price is 100 rupees. So how much is going to be the value? 1000 rupees, isn't it? Simple. What is the cost of one unit? 100 rupees. Selling unit 100 rupees, computer being produced 10, total value in the market 100 rupees. Fine, ठीक है. Let's come the year 2022. Due to some geopolitical risk, due to some geopolitical tension, semiconductors were not available, and this year we have only produced 9. But we have decided that since we have only produced 9, we have to make sure that the company is going to earn the profit, otherwise we can't pay the salaries. So let's say we have increased the price to 120. And the value will become 1080, 12 into 9, 1080. Okay? So let's look into nominal GDP and real GDP. So what is nominal GDP, student? Nominal GDP is market value at current price. So what is the market value at current price? 1080. So nominal GDP is 1080. It is current price, 1080. Now comes the second question. What is nominal GDP growth? The nominal GDP is 1080. What is nominal GDP growth? Growth should be compared with the previous years. So in previous years, we've sold out the product for 1000. This year, we are selling it out for 1080. It's a total 80 rupees increase over the 1000 rupees. So it means nominal GDP growth is 8%, isn't it? It's 8%. After all, why it is 8%? Answer is quite clear in front of you. After all, it's a GDP growth or a nominal GDP growth at the current price. So current price is 1080, compared it with the 1000, the growth is 8%. Fine. Let's look into real GDP. What is real GDP? Real GDP is market value or output value at constant price. So what? How many computers you have produced? 9. But you have to keep constant the price. So compared to the last year, although you are selling it to 120, but compared to the last year, you need to keep prices as constant. So what is total number of computer production? 9. What is the earlier value? Constant value 100. What is going to be the output value? It should be 9 into 100, 900. 1080 is nominal, 900 is real. So in actual market value at constant price, how many you have produced? Only 9. How much you have produced? Only 9. At what price? Constant price, only 100. So 9 into 100 is 900. And what is going to be the real GDP growth? Earlier it was total value of 1000. Right now it is only 900. It is in fact a degrowth of 10%. So real GDP growth is minus 10%. And this is where the divergence is. Divergence between real and nominal is always due to inflation. So please understand. Now please go back to the GDP GVA formula. What is GDP? GDP is basically, forget about factor cost and all those things. What is GDP and GVA difference? GDP is basically change in volume or change in total production. Here the change in volume is less. From 10 you reduce to 9. So GDP is actually being reduced by 10%. That's what the real GDP is actually suggesting. So change in volume is minus 10% over here, because GDP is all about the change in volume, to be very precise in terms of factor cost. Now what is GVA? GVA is basically it is related to the market value of the finished product, and the market value of finished product was earlier 1000 and here it is 1080. So what is GDP? GDP actually calculates change in volume of the product or of the production, change in volume, whereas GVA is basically change in price. So here the change in price is 8%, but the change in volume is minus 10%, and therefore there is always a divergence between real GDP and nominal GDP. In order to remove divergence, abhi problem solve ho jati hai yahan par. Even economists are aware about this nursery class mathematics and numbers. They are also, after they are the one who have created definition, they are aware about it. But in order to remove this anomaly between real GDP and nominal GDP, there should not be a huge amount of divergence between real GDP and nominal GDP. They introduce one concept, which is subtracting the impact of inflation. So therefore, student, real GDP growth equals to nominal GDP growth minus inflation. And I'm writing inflation, but actually it should not be inflation, it should be impact of inflation. Subtracting the impact of inflation. Subtracting the impact of inflation. So real GDP equals to nominal GDP minus inflation. Minus inflation means subtracting the impact of inflation. And in order to subtracting the impact of inflation, there is one unique formula commonly known as GDP deflator. So what is GDP deflator? As the word deflator goes, it actually deflate the prices. गुब्बारे को जो फूला हुआ गुब्बारा है उसको कम कर देते हैं, deflate the prices. So GDP deflator is a very important component. It's a very important component to calculate the real GDP. So GDP deflator is nominal GDP, which is at the current prices, and of course real GDP at the constant prices into 100. Now, whenever you are going to deflate the GDP, whenever you are going to apply the GDP deflator, so GDP deflator will do wonders for you, because it is going to deflate the impact of inflation, and once it is going to deflate the impact of inflation, your actual change in production is going to be there. But what's the problem with India's GDP deflator? What's the real problem with India's GDP deflator, student? The real problem with India's GDP deflator is America the prima donna of the global economy, America. America calculates GDP deflator in a double deflation method. In a double deflator method. In a double deflator method. What do we mean by double deflator method? They calculate deflation at both the input price as well as the output price. मतलब मैं एक माल बना रहा हूं, तो माल मुझे कितना महंगा मिला उस पर भी डिफ्लेटर कैलकुलेट करते हैं, और मैंने मार्केट में जाके जब उसे बिकवाया तो वहां पर भी डिफ्लेशन के इंपैक्ट को कैलकुलेट करते हैं. सो जीडीपी डिफ्लेटर इज बेसिकली एडजस्टिंग ऑफ प्राइसेस based upon the inflation. And in America there is a double deflator method for both the input price as well as output price for the producer. And in America, deflator method is dependent upon one index known as producer price index. Whereas in India, we don't use double deflator method. We only use single deflator method. We only prefer single deflator method. In India, we only use single deflator method, and that too on WPI, wholesale price index, and that too on WPI, wholesale price index. And this is where the problem is. When you are calculating WPI on, when you are calculating deflator on WPI, and if WPI is going to get reduced, look into this part very sincerely. This is perhaps the most important line for today's session. If WPI is going to get reduced, GDP deflator would be next to nothing. It is going to be nothing, because after all, prices have been already deflated. If WPI is going to get reduced, deflator is going to show nothing, almost no change. And as a result, student, nominal GDP would turn out to be equivalent to real GDP. Although the impact of inflation is there in our family, after all, a producer of a particular product is not having any problem of inflation because his raw material price has been reduced, but due to high taxation, GST, bicholiye, and all those people, middlemen, I am the one who's paying the heavy price. So on ground inflation is 10% for a product, but for the manufacturer it is nothing. So based upon the faulty interpretation of deflator method in our country, if WPI is going to get reduced, deflator will show nothing, the impact of inflation will be nothing, and therefore nominal GDP correspond to real GDP itself. I'll give you the real numbers right now in front of you. In the year 2022, our nominal GDP was around 16%, and impact of inflation was around 8%. We actually calculate the impact of inflation of around 8%. It is not only inflation, it is impact of inflation. And impact of inflation is basically deflator. So impact of inflation was around 8%, and therefore real GDP was around somewhere 8%, 8.5, somewhere like that. Easily acceptable, good data, because on ground inflation has to be around 7, 8, 9%. This is something quite easily understood. लेकिन हुआ क्या student? In the year 2022, commodity price were very expensive. In the year 2022, commodities were very, very expensive, extremely expensive. Prices of copper, prices of nickel, prices of all important minerals were touching the sky roof due to the cost push inflation, due to the pent up demand, massive inflation. So if inflation of commodity goes up, WPI in India goes up. ऐसा क्यों? Because in our country, manufacturing has a weightage of 65% in WPI. In WPI, the weightage of manufacturing is somewhere around 65. To be very precise, 64.23 या 65.23 ऐसा कुछ है. So let's say 65%. So if raw material price goes up, mineral price goes up, coal price goes up, steel price goes up, iron ore price goes up, WPI goes up, and when then WPI goes up, then automatically we'll be going to have a huge number of subtraction from the nominal GDP, and this was there in 2022. 2022 was a year of exuberance. 2020 was suffering from corona. Our GDP tanked like anything. 2021 was mild recovery, and 2022 we got a boom. So therefore we got a nominal GDP of 16%. Accepted. इतना तो हुआ हमारे यहाँ, लेकिन इन्फ्लेशन भी 8% था. एक्सेप्टेड, इतना भी था, इन्फ्लेशन ऑन ग्राउंड था, और रियल जीडीपी 8 था, सही फिगर था, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. नाउ कम्स द ईयर 2024. Year 2024, our nominal GDP is now hovering around 10-11%. 10-11%, way lesser than 16%. But real GDP is still 6.5 and 7%. Don't you think it's a very difficult figure to digest? Nominal GDP is 10%. Ideally, real GDP should be 4% if we consider inflation to be 6%. At least on ground inflation 6 तो लो. CPI जब 6 चल रहा है, कम से कम ऑन ग्राउंड इन्फ्लेशन क्यूमुलेटिवली 6 तो लो, लेकिन नहीं लेते. क्यों नहीं लेते? बिकॉज जीडीपी डिफ्लेटर इज ऑल अबाउट WPI, एंड WPI गॉन इनटू माइनस टेरिटरी इन द ईयर 2024 बिकॉज ऑफ डिफ्लेशन इन द प्राइसेस ऑफ कमोडिटी. So here you have a student, real GDP is 6.5 to 7%, which I guess is a very difficult figure to digest because nominal GDP is 10%. Inflation as per this, अगर इस फिगर को देखें तो इन्फ्लेशन केवल 3 और 4 आती है. डू यू रियली थिंक अवर इन्फ्लेशन इज ओनली 3%, 4% और 2%, 1.5%? Not at all. Not at all, student. It's nowhere close to what these data is suggesting. Our inflation is way above that. अब बात आती है कैलकुलेट क्यों नहीं करते फिर? कैलकुलेट कहाँ से कर लें? डिफ्लेटर का फॉर्मूला ही गलत है. If we are going to calculate deflator at both the way, at the input as well as the output, for the producer price and for the market price, then we will move towards a balanced one. We only calculate WPI inflation in terms of deflator. So whenever kacha tel crude oil price goes up, raw material price goes up, steel price goes up, manufacturing cost goes up, WPI goes up, deflator goes up, real GDP come down. No issues with that. They actually show the good picture. But whenever WPI is going to get reduced, automatically deflator will show no movement, hardly any movement. And as a result, real GDP seems to be working very fine. And this is where the problem is. Year 2024, our nominal GDP was 10%, hovering around 10-11%, and somebody is saying, or our authorities are saying that only inflationary impact of 3 to 4% and real GDP is 6.7% or 6.5% is a very difficult thing to master it over here. As someone who's been looking into these things, it's very difficult thing to comprehend as of now. So by looking into this particular point, student, India uses a single deflator method. And WPI is having and our focus is on not producer price index, our focus is on the wholesale price index. हम लोग प्रोड्यूसर पे भी कैलकुलेट नहीं करते, हम लोग मंडी वाली कॉस्ट कैलकुलेट करते हैं, WPI. तो होता क्या है, जैसे ही मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कॉस्ट कम हो जाती है तो WPI जो है उस पर बहुत तेजी से रिडक्शन होता है. तो डिफ्लेटर कोई मूवमेंट शो नहीं करता है, सो इम्पैक्ट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन वुड बी नेग्लिजिबल. एंड देयरफॉर स्टूडेंट, इवन इफ नॉमिनल जीडीपी हैज शोन अ 50% रिडक्शन, इट इज हार्डली शोइंग एनी रिडक्शन इन रियल जीडीपी इज स्टिल शोइंग 6.5 to 7%, which is not a true figure as per few learned economists. What is government saying? Government saying that no, this is not the thing. We calculate impact of inflation because after all our inflation, when we calculate the impact of inflation, we actually calculate GVA, and in GVA we actually calculate all those important value addition done by various sector, which itself includes the impact of inflation. So it's a very tricky thing to get into, but somebody who's preparing for this exam, I guess this much knowledge is more than enough for you. So we don't have double deflator condition. We only have the single deflator method. India is only having a single deflator method. Therefore, every time WPI is into the negative territory, our inflation impact would be negligible. और फिर उस nominal GDP कम भी हो जाए तब भी real GDP कुछ नहीं देखेगा. आप ऐसे देख लो, ऐसे देखो, nominal GDP 13% पे आ गई, inflation 3 मान लो, and real GDP will turn out to be 10. Next year, real GDP, which is going to be the very huge figure, 10% GDP growth. And next year, let's say, nominal GDP turn out to be, let's say, 11%. Inflationary impact turn out to be only 1%. And then again, real GDP is going to be 10%, which I guess is not a true figure. If there's a 2% reduction in nominal GDP, it should be showing its impact onto the real as well. But unfortunately, due to data management, it only showing the no change as such. So this is where the problem is, student. So how you are going to answer that particular question? Why there is a divergence between nominal GDP and real GDP in our country? The divergence is due to the deflator method we actually calculate. So deflator is a very simple concept that we actually looked into from our 12th NCERT, but this is something as somebody who is preparing for exam should also looked into. So we need to put our focus on producer price index. And why only producer price index? I guess we need to have an average at all the three stage. Producer price index deflator, wholesale price index deflator, and CPI price index deflator. Once we are going to have a combination of it, we'll be going to have a real picture of our GDP growth. अब समझ में आया आपको कि अमेरिका में 2-3% GDP ग्रोथ ही क्यों दिखती है? वहाँ पर US में 2-3% and in Europe also they are hardly showing any movement beyond 2-3% is because of the fact that they have a phenomenon of double deflator. Now let's look into the other issues, student, which are going to be equally important for our overall preparation. Some other analysis, then I'll show you some important newspaper links. Our GDP growth is suggesting one thing, which I guess I have to accept very precisely, that Gini coefficient is showing the improvement. Gini coefficient, which is all about inequality. And to be very precise, student, I do believe this is absolutely correct. In our country, inequality is reducing. You must be laughing, isn't it? Inequality is reducing. Somebody is shelling out $2 billion in a marriage. And I don't even have, I need not to use the term, but I don't even have, नहीं ये नहीं बोलना चाहिए, मेरे दिमाग में आ रहा है, but I don't even have 2-time meal, which I guess is absolutely incorrect. That should not be the case. So somebody is shelling out $2 billion in marriage. We've all seen the gala marriage by the Ambani families. And it is definitely going to have a massive repercussion onto the middle class as well. Even middle class family do aping these highly affluential families. So you believe that inequality is increasing, isn't it? And while reading the Hindu newspaper, you must have come across a lot of article by the Thomas Piketty as well. So people like Thomas Piketty, Jayati Ghosh, and whom? People like Thomas Piketty, Jayati Ghosh, John Gray, they all are suggesting that India's inequality is on increase. But here I have a one view that the student in the past at least 10-12 years, we have some tremendous scheme showing a huge amount of impact into the rural area. Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, Suraksha Bima Yojana, and apart from that, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. These things, if not making rural people richer, at least making sure that they are going to have enough amount of money to at least having so much money that they are going to be living above the poverty line itself. So one important fact by looking into the GDP growth in our country is the fact that Gini coefficient is showing an improvement. Inequality reducing. Yes, massive difference between the HNIs, billionaires and the middle class is increasing. But at the same time, the kind of inequality India was known for is been reducing. That's why this is where credit should be given where it is due. And this is where they should be given, BJP should be given a huge round of applause because of the fact that they are in a position to reduce the inequality as such. So Gini coefficient is showing the improvement. Women's labor force participation, although as per periodic labor force survey, women's labor force participation is on increase, but slightly difficult to comprehend, but as per the PLFS data, it is showing the improvement. and I'll be going to have a good amount of discussion in the upcoming week on this particular topic. There is good amount of growth in the tax GDP ratio as well. Our tax GDP ratio is showing good amount of buoyancy. So tax GDP ratio is how much? 11.7%, I guess, 11.1 to 11.7%. So this is again a good figure to be comprehend. And one more important point, we are also reaching closer towards middle income trap. For how long we are going to be trapped in this middle income trap, only time will tell. But yes, it's a reality when companies, when countries progress a lot, then after certain period of time, they reach towards the position of middle income trap. It had happened with many countries, it may happen with India as well. What exactly is middle income trap? It's a very simple phenomena which says, or which goes like this, student, whenever a country goes closer towards 10 to 15% of per capita income of America, 10 to 15% of per capita income of USA. Whenever any country move closer towards achieving the 10 to 15% of per capita income of USA, then they may be going to enter into a middle income trap. Their economic growth is going to plateau. Their economic growth is going to get plateaued, and at the same time, they'll be going to spend a hell lot of time in that particular range. It had happened with South Korea, it had happened with Japan, it is going to happen with other countries as well. Although Japan is a damn rich country, but at certain period of time, they were having this situation. China is having this situation right now. I guess China is already into middle income trap, although Chinese people and the kind of innovation, the kind of entrepreneurship this country is promoting, it may be possible they'll be going to break this particular trap in the days to come. Having said that, what's about India? So how much is the per capita income of America? I guess India is close to $2,000. अब तो बढ़ गया होगा because we are claiming that we are a $4 trillion economy. So India is $2,000, America is 10 times of our GDP and 1 by 4 of our population. So it's going to be 40 times. So I guess $80,000. I guess America's per capita income is $80,000, close to $80,000, quite a huge number, rich country. And therefore, a student, the moment we are going to achieve somewhere around $3,000, $4,000 per capita income of America, we will get closer towards the middle income trap. So middle income trap means any country having 10-15% of per capita income of America, their growth is going to get plateaued. और वो तभी break होगा when you are going to create indispensable amount of production capacity, something which cannot be compromised. China is on the verge of it because they have already given a tough time via their artificial intelligence DeepSeek. They are already doing a lot of homework in large language models. They are already preparing a lot of innovative products when it comes to the artificial intelligence or the consumer electronics. So they may have the potential for it. So this is again a very important point we need to look into. One very risky point from India's GDP growth point of view is our gross fixed capital formation is not showing any sign of progress. We have to, अब देखो कॉर्पोरेट कंपनी को टैक्स कट भी मिल गया, सब कुछ तो दे दिया गवर्नमेंट ने. They have given them tax cut, they have given them विवाद से विश्वास scheme, they have given them PLI, which is the production linked subsidy scheme. Everything has been given, but still the competitiveness of Indian companies is highly missing. And I'm saying this with full authority, student. By looking into some business houses in our country, these business houses have a rent-seeking attitude. Although I should be the last person in the world who should be saying this thing, because even after doing the engineering, I'm teaching in a coaching institute, so a lot of people may be going to put question mark on me as well. But the fact of the matter is, there are a lot of corporate houses in our country who are having a rent-seeking attitude. What do we mean rent-seeking attitude? It means they do not want to go for innovation. I'm I'm slightly worried about the fact that look at Kumar Mangalam Birla, such a huge corporate business house in our country, Birla. And what they are getting into? They are getting into jewelry. Indriya, some company they have launched jewelry business. They've launched, they are now becoming a competitor of Asian Paints and all these things. They need to do some hardcore innovation, semiconductors, fighter jets, and other important type of innovation. And I do believe these people who are running these startups, people like Dipender Goyal of Zomato, they have a much higher tendency. They will take much higher risk. The typical Banya mentality of them, they will take much higher risk. And they may be going to be in a position to make India a country which is full of having a production capacity. The most worrying point about Indian corporate companies is they are not producing fixed capital. So our gross fixed capital formation is missing. GFCF is missing. It is totally close to 30 odd % of Indian GDP, but it should be more. Then only we will move towards a country which is known for its manufacturing capacities. So again, a very important point that we need to look into. Gross fixed capital formation is missing, or in a nutshell, private investment is not coming. Private investment is missing, student. Investment is not coming at a very higher degree. Private investment is elusive, disappearing. And we all know that moment there is going to be huge amount of private investment, it is going to have a massive amount of domino effect. It is going to have an effect which is going to be realized by every cycle of the business industry. So you have one simple formula that fixed capital, the moment a country's fixed capital is going to get increased, output is going to get increased over a period of time. So it's again a very essential thing that we have to look into. So these are all the important points. That's very essential. Household saving, household debt are increasing, deposit aa nahi raha hai, household debt are increasing, household savings are getting down, and fixed capital is also a point of worry. Now, one very important area, why do we need to change a base year? Why do we need to change a base year of GDP? GDP calculation, base year of GDP calculation. Why do we need to change it? There are a couple of reasons, good solid reason behind it. Reason number one is quite understandable. Number one, change in consumption pattern. Our consumption pattern has been changing at a very rapid pace, especially the young generation that we are having it, the demographic dividend that we are having it. We are showing a massive amount of change in our consumption pattern, and it is not related to the metropolitan cities. These changes are quite evident in our tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 cities as well. For example, let me give you an example. 10, 15 years ago, we don't have Zomatos. We don't have Zomato, we don't have Swiggy, we don't have these quick commerce, Blanket and Zeptos. It is changing the consumer pattern. Na? We are, because the moment you are ordering food from outside, so it is giving a job to the gig workers, it is giving a job to the restaurant laborers as well. It is also making sure that a lot of packaging companies are also going to get the net profit from it. So overall, it is going to have a massive impact onto the economy. Overall, it is going to have a massive impact onto the economy. So one thing is very sure, student, that India is showing a huge amount of change in the consumption pattern. Our consumption pattern is showing a tremendous amount of upward trajectory, and therefore it's quite necessary that we need to change our base year. Our economic structure has been completely changed, and in a lot of sector we are showing improvement, even in agriculture as well. So economic structure is showing improvement. Commodity consumption is also showing a huge change. I'll give you a very beautiful example which I guess we all are going to identify with it. Our commodity consumption is also showing a change. Look at this example, student, makhana. So I still remember during my early childhood days, whenever if some person in my family is having a makhana, the first thing that's come to my mind, today is a fasting day. Today is a auspicious day, or it's a fasting day, or it's a day of some religious importance. Therefore, as a matter of having a daily fast, they are consuming these makhanas. So makhanas was something which we are only going to get it seen on some auspicious day or on some religious matters, and this is something not been a habitual part of our daily eating. And what's the reality these days? These days you have some top FMCG companies, MNC companies, they are adding certain sort of masalas onto those makhanas, and they are selling it to the Gen Z, they are selling it to the young generation. Young generations are enjoying it. And it's a very difficult process to make these makhanas. What do we call it in English? Foxtail, I guess? Makhana. क्या कहते हैं अंग्रेजी में? Foxtail कहते हैं, ऐसी कुछ कहते हैं. तो very difficult process to produce it. And the farmers from Bihar are getting a maximum advantage of it. Therefore, Nirmala Sitharaman decided to introduce a makhana board in Bihar itself. So our commodity consumption, agriculture commodity consumption, manufacturing processes, all are going through a sea change. Therefore, it is very important to have a change in base year. And one more important thing, India is all about unorganized sector, and therefore it's very essential that this survey is also going to play a very vital role in the GDP calculation as well. Annual survey of unorganized sector enterprises. Annual survey of unorganized sector enterprises. So keeping these things in mind, student, government has finally decided that they are going to change the base year. Most probably new base year is going to be 22-23, because 22-23 we had a tremendous growth after the pandemic, and we are going to have a new base year for it. Government has recently appointed one committee, if I'm not wrong, Beswanath Goldar. Biswanath Goldar committee, they'll be going to look into the base year change. So, very relevant one. Now, let me show you certain important links of all those things that I have shared with you. All those important things that I've shared with you, first of all, I've already shown into the morning class, so it's become easier for me to look into. I've already told you that India is having a problem of deflator, and Arvind Subramanian, former chief economic advisor of our country, he's saying again and again and again that India is overestimating or overcalculating its GDP. These are the articles. These are the articles that you can normally come across. As you can see, his article, India's Q3 GDP numbers are absolutely mystifying, Arvind Subramanian. So he's saying it over here that India's GDP number are absolutely mystifying. And why exactly mystifying? It is related to the deflator issue itself. So this is the article that you can look into. Couple of more. And there are a number of YouTube videos as well. India's Arvind Subramanian admits India's GDP growth are mystifying. And very good debate published on the print newspaper, Economist versus Statistician. Although government is refuting this claim that no, we are not overestimating, because government has submitted a proper document challenging the Subramanian's claim as well. As you can see, quite directly over here, although it's बहुत पुराना cutting है, India's GDP growth overestimated by 2.5%. So quite a huge number, and it's all related to deflator issue. Let me show you one more important point. one more important point. What should I show it to you? Uh, GDP deflator issue. GDP deflator issue. Indian Express. Indian Express. Whatever that I have just shared with you, whatever description, whatever knowledge that I have just shared with you, it's there. It's there in this article. So my knowledge, my learning has already been sharpened up by this particular article. It took me at least 3 or 4 readings. 2 घंटे में धीरे धीरे करके फिर एक कुछ लिंक्स करने चालू की कि हाँ ये हो सकता है. So it's a very good article being published in Indian Express last year, 29th of March 2024, 1 year ago. And she's been continuously saying one thing, deflator problem. So deflator problem is what I have to share with you, and every single point that I've shared with you is basically related to this one. And as you can see, let me read out a couple of lines. According to the latest figure, nominal GDP increased by 10.1%. This translated into a growth of 8.4%, implying that the deflator was 1.7%. And that's for the same thing that we have just shared. So the problem is related to the deflator. And the moment we are going to address it, I guess the issues related to India's GDP calculation is going to get resolved. And that's what I want to share with you. Last thing, I guess I've covered everything. Last link that I want to share with you is this one, fixed capital issue. So private investment Hindu carried a very beautiful article couple of months ago, and this is one of the best article. Is private investment expected to rise? Private investment correspond to GFCF. So all these things I've shared with you depend upon the learnings that I've just gone through it. Now let's go back to our important learning. So I've covered with you this particular topic. Now shift our focus onto the WPI issue. So let's give the headline. Should we change base year of WPI? Answer is obviously yes, because if you are changing the base year of GDP, it's quite essential that you need to look into the base year change of the CPI and WPI as well. So why do we need a change in base year of WPI? Answer is, okay, I'll come back to this particular question. Let's look into the fundamental. First of all, we all know, how do you define inflation? Inflation is something which is going to reduce the purchasing power of the rupee that you are having it. But in a very layman's language, inflation actually means change in price level. It is not change in price, it is change in price level. For example, student, if this marker is 100 rupees and tomorrow it is going to be sold in the market at the rate of 200 rupees, then this is not inflation. It is not inflation. 100 goes to 200 is not inflation. But if 100 goes to 200 and then after some period of time it fall to 150 and then after 150 it makes a base and never goes below 150, then it is known as inflation. Inflation is not the upward trajectory of prices. Inflation is moving in the upward trajectory, making a plateau, then upward trajectory, making a plateau, then upward trajectory, making a plateau. This is known as increase in price level. So inflation is not increase in price, it is increasing in a price level. For example, let's say the gold prices. So the gold prices just 10 years ago was 30,000 rupees per 10 gram per tola. Now it is hovering around 90,000 rupees. So if it is hovering around 90,000 rupees, it means it is, कैसे बढ़ा होगा? Has it gone up 30,000 to 90,000 immediately? No, it gone up to 30,000 to 50,000. Then it fall up to 40. Then after 40, it never come back to 30. Then from 40 to 60, fall to 50, never come back to 50. Then 50 to 80, fall to 60, never come back to 50 once again or 60 once again. So this is known as inflation. So inflation is over a period of time increase in price level. Over a period of time increase in price level, and that particular price rise is due to demand, due to supply. Inflation, while looking into the textbook definition, we actually look into types of inflation. So there are so many types of inflation: currency inflation, demand side inflation, supply side inflation, galloping inflation. All these technical definitions are there in your notebook. I'm more interested in the two sort of definition. So you have the demand pull inflation. So demand pull inflation means where there's a high demand for product, low production, low supply, immediately it will lead towards the hike in price. So you have the demand pull inflation and you have the cost push inflation, isn't it? Demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. These are the two type of inflation. Cost push inflation means when raw material are very expensive, it is subsequently get transferred to you because producer is going to have a very heavy cost of the expensive raw material. He is going to do the manufacturing and transform it to you. So you have the cost push inflation. Similarly, student, John Maynard Keynes used to suggest that whenever there is going to be a tax cut, if tax cut is going to be very high, it means 30% reduced to 20%. So whenever there's going to be tax cut increase, not tax cut is increased, means reduction in taxation is very high, then it is definitely going to have a more amount of consumption by the people, because people will be going to have to do more consumption because of the extra disposable income they have. For example, one of the repercussion of having 12 lakh rupees for middle class family, no income taxation up to 12 lakh rupees, because 12 lakh plus 50,000 more, so you'll be going to have 12.5 lakhs. So by the time we are going to have the impact of it, people will realize that they are having slightly better disposable income, and due to this better disposable income, consumption will go up, demand will go up, and it may be going to prompt inflation on the higher side. So you have these basic fundamental definitions. Similarly, there is one concept of stagflation, which is all about poor GDP growth or poor economic growth, and of course a high amount of inflation, and of course high unemployment as well. And at the same time, Philip curve is a contrary belief. So Philip curve is all about inflation and unemployment, which is contrary to the idea of stagflation. So the moment you'll be going to have a very high unemployment, people will not buy anything, inflation will reduce. So this is Philip curve. So these are all the basic fundamental which are essentially associated with our concept of inflation. It hardly take at least one class, it will hardly take at least one day to master or revising all those things which are related to inflation. All these are the things which are there in your notebook. Now let's come down to the most important point. And the most important point is, do we need to change the base year of WPO? Answer is, we all are aware, it is yes, because GDP डेटा का बेस ईयर चेंज होगा तो WPI का तो करना पड़ेगा डिफ्लेटर अलाइंड करने के लिए. But why we have to change the base year? Are there any technical details related to it? Let's look into it. So in our country, WPI has been calculated by Office of Economic Advisor, Ministry of Commerce, DPIIT. And WPI is having three important verticals. It is having three specific verticals which are actually defining the basket of commodities to be put into WPI. So you have primary articles, we have the primary articles, then we have the fuel and power, and then we have the manufacturing. We have the primary articles, we have the fuel and power, we have the manufacturing or manufactured products. Let me write manufactured products. And when it comes down to the weightage, weightage number is very important. You should remember these weightage. I guess you are aware about it. So primary article is having a weightage of around 22.62%. Fuel and power is having a weightage of around 13.15%, and manufactured product is having a weightage of around 64.23%. So manufactured products is having a massive difference. So primary articles basically includes food, cereals, pulses, beverages. Food and cereals are basically a part of primary articles. Food, cereals, paddy, wheat, pulses, vegetables, they all are a part of over here. Fuel and power means LPG, diesel, all are part of it. Manufactured products also include certain food products as well, because after all, the Ashirwad Atta of ITC is basically a agriculture product primary article, but it has been manufactured in a factory of ITC, so it turned out to be a manufactured product. So manufactured product had certain component of primary articles as well. It includes certain component of food product, but after that it includes apparels, textile, medicines, clothing, pharma products, chemicals, etc. And overall weightage of WPI is 64.23%. So the moment a student, now please understand, the moment raw material price goes up, now please connect all the dots that we have just shared in today's session. The moment raw material price goes up, is India a raw material independent country? Answer is no, we are not a raw material independent country. We are self-sufficient in steel production, but still we need to produce for the world. We should compare ourselves with China. If I'm not wrong, China is having 10 times more steel production capacity than ours. How much we are producing? I guess we are producing 100 million ton. We are producing 100 million ton of steel, and China is, I guess, 10 times of what we are producing. So you can easily suggest that in terms of steel production, we are slightly self-sufficient. In bauxite, we are self-sufficient, couple of more commodities, essential commodities. But looking into some critical minerals and rare earth elements, we are not self-sufficient. So as a result of it, whenever raw material price in international market goes up, naturally it will have impact on the WPI. If raw material price goes up, manufactured product will become more expensive. It is definitely going to get more expensive. After all, manufacturing solely depend upon the raw material price. Now if raw material price goes up, WPI goes up. If WPI goes up, deflator would be very high. Why exactly? Why deflator would be very high? Deflator would be very high because deflator in India is WPI centric. So deflator would be very high. If deflator would be very high, then it is definitely going to have more impact on real GDP. I'm not going to write lesser impact. I'm not going to write that impact is going to be only 2%, 3%, 4%, because it depends upon the economic scenario and nominal GDP as well. So it is going to have a more impact on real GDP, or I would rather say this deflator is going to make sure that the nominal GDP impact is going to get nullified more. So more impact onto the real GDP. And opposite to it, if raw material price goes down, now I'm writing in short form, if raw material price goes down, WPI will go down. If WPI will go down, deflator would be flat. It would be flat, and automatically real GDP will show, real GDP on real GDP, this deflator would have no impact. And this is what happened in the year 2024, the article which I was just showing it to you. Since in the year 2023 to almost 2024, for the past at least 1.5 year, WPI has been crashed. It is now into negative territory for few months. And therefore, since it has been negative territory into the few months, it is showing a potential where deflator is not showing any impact, and therefore real GDP seems to be like performing very well. Our real GDP, if it is showing 6.5%, it is only because of the deflator issue. If you are going to go down into the skin and if you are going to look into the numbers, then you will realize that real GDP is not what it has been portraying. So this is again a very important point we have to look into. Now let me give you one more example, which I guess is very essential. What was India's total or what is India's total merchandise export? If I'm not wrong, our merchandise export is now touching $440 billion. अब exact figure देख लेना. Merchandise export, which includes only the manufacturing. I'm not talking about the service export. I'm not talking about total. Service export is very good. It is touching $250 billion. But service export is having huge amount of threat as well. What are the threats? It is always going to be get replaceable. Because in the service economy, the moment some cheaper skill arbitrage countries are going to be there, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia, Laos, Philippines, Vietnam, these type of countries can take away our service industry. Although Indian service industry is now deeply rooted thanks to the culture that we have developed in the past 30 years. But at the same time, threats are always there, and this era of artificial intelligence and large language models, where coding is getting easier, writing software code is getting easier, software testing is getting easier. I don't know how many coders and testers are going to save their jobs in the days to come. Some high paid one are already going to have a difficult time, are already witnessing a difficult time. But if it is going to come down to the placement level, then you can easily assume the kind of problem that we are going to have. So how much is the merchandise export that we are having it right now? It is somewhere around $440 billion. Let's take a rough number, $450 billion. So our merchandise export from almost 2013 to almost 2022, it was hovering around $330 billion. It was hovering around $330 billion. It was not going beyond $330 billion. 10 साल यही चला. And immediately in the year 2022-2023, it was touching $440 billion. Was it related to government schemes? Up to certain extent, yes. Because you cannot deny the effort of the Ministry of Commerce, because they are running a lot of good programs which are essential. But having said that, if merchandise export increased from 330 to 440, it is not because of government effort. It was majorly due to rise in WPI. Because रॉ मटेरियल प्राइसेस आर बीइंग मोर एक्सपेंसिव. तो आपने मंगवाया 10 में था, वैल्यू एड किया, 50 में बेच रहे हो, जो कल तक 30 में बिकता था 50 में बिक रहा है. सो आवर merchandise export is showing increase in value due to inflation. It is not showing increase in value due to increased production or increased export. It is showing increase in value due to the rise in inflation. If WPI has been increased, raw material cost has been increased, so does the finished product made by Indian companies. So this is the reality, student, and therefore, student, keeping this thing in mind, we need to change our WPI. Our WPI has huge amount of weightage to the manufacturing, and for food product, WPI food article is having a total weightage of around 24.38%, lesser compared to what CPI is. So every time food inflation goes up, CPI goes up more higher compared to the WPI, and every time raw material price goes up, WPI goes slightly higher compared to the CPI. So we need to change the base year of WPI. It's very essential. We have to look into the base year of WPI change, number one. Number two, apart from WPI base year change, we should address the issue of CPI as well. CPI is also having a problem. After all, it is being calculated for the retail buyer. It's a change in price for the retail buyer itself, from the perspective of the retail buyer. And CPI has four components. CPI industrial worker, CPI agriculture laborers, CPI industrial worker, CPI agriculture laborers, CPI rural laborers, and then towards the CPI rural urban cumulative. So these three data are being calculated by Ministry of Labor and Employment, whereas CPI rural urban is being calculated by MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Programming Implementation. CPI is being calculated by NSO, which is a body of MOSPI itself. Now, where is the major issue? The major issue is related to the weightage. So we have unbelievable amount of higher weightage for the food, because I have told you the Angel's law in my first class. I've told you the Angel's law in my first class. Now, the moment the family's income are going to get increased, the family's disposable income are going to get increased. The quantum of money that they are shedding it out to the food product or essential product is going to get reduced. But since India is having a very minuscule amount of disposable income among its household, Angel's law carries a lot of weightage for a country like India, and so does food articles. So in our country, CPI base year is 2012, and food and beverages, milk and all, are having almost 45% weightage, 45.86 I guess, 45.86% weightage. And then other weightages there, pan tobacco is 2%, clothing is 6%, housing is 10%, which is good, but and miscellaneous is close to 28%. So food beverages is having a very high weightage. And consumer food price index, CFPI, consumer food price index, CFPI, is having a 39 point weightage over here, 39.06. So keeping this thing in mind, student, we have a very huge proportion of weightage for the food in terms of the CPI. This is good up to certain extent for policymaker, because food inflation actually not only disturb the family but also take away the power of the government. Due to the food inflation itself, Indian economy and at the same time Indian political structure has gone through massive changes again and again. प्याज के दाम महंगे हो जाते हैं, सरकारें गिर जाती हैं. सो फूड इन्फ्लेशन इज नेसेसरी, नो डाउट अबाउट इट, बट वो प्रॉब्लम भी है एक, और वो प्रॉब्लम है हमारी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी क्रिएशन के लिए. कैसे उसको ऑब्जर्व करने की कोशिश करते हैं. टू बी वेरी प्रिसाइज, इफ CPIs goes up, which means primarily food inflation goes up, or vice versa. If food inflation is going up, it is going to have a major impact onto the CPI. And at the same time, if raw material price goes up, then WPI will goes up. And if WPI will goes up, then it is going to have its impact on the deflator issues as well. Now, why do we need to change the base year of WPI, and why there is a huge amount of divergence between CPI and WPI as well? CPI is having major weightage of food product, which is primarily India-centric problem, and WPI is having a major weightage of the manufactured product, which is having a supply side problem due to the raw material prices, which India is being a net importer. So there is always going to be a divergence between CPI and WPI. It may be possible that the WPI is into the negative territory and CPI is 7-8%, or it may be possible that WPI is into 14-12% and CPI is having only 9-10%. It is all due to the basket that we are consuming. Now comes the real issue, student. The real issue is some analytical point, and I'm going to add few important analytical point for our overall preparation and learning, highly essential for you. One analytical point that I'm adding it over here, our monetary policy is too much dependent on CPI. We all know our monetary policy is dependent on 4 plus minus 2% data, flexible inflation targeting, and they are too much dependent onto the CPI numbers. And please understand, this is where the problem is. The problem is CPI is all about food inflation. And take my word, student, India will never get rid of food inflation. That's it. Ashok Gulati can write 100 articles. Ashok Gulati sir can write 100 articles. He has given hundreds of suggestions in the past at least 10-12 years. 10-12 साल से तो मैं ही पढ़ रहा हूँ. कम से कम 5-6 साल से तो बहुत अच्छे से पढ़ रहा हूँ इन आर्टिकल्स को. So he has given many suggestions related to making sure that the farmers are going to have enough amount of money to their produce and at the same time getting rid of the food inflation problem. But nowhere we are witnessing a massive change. It is because of the fact that food inflation is not going to be solved at its earliest. The reasons are, number one, why we are having a food inflation problem? Number one, our soil moisture has been completely disturbed, student. Due to the amount of heat waves that we are witnessing, the kind of heat waves that we are witnessing, it is definitely going to impact, initially going to impact onto the harvesting season, and then later on it is going to have impact onto the sowing of the Kharif season. So our food inflation is creating havoc in the soil moisture. Apart from the soil moisture, our food inflation is always going to be there due to extreme climate event. It is going to have the extreme climate event, maybe due to El Nino, maybe due to Indian Ocean dipole. We may be going to have the extreme climate event due to western disturbance, due to flash flood, due to hailstorm, due to heat waves, due to storm attacks. We can have so many problems being integrated with only one phenomenon, and that is extreme climate event. An extreme weather event, extreme climate event is actually disturbing our southwest monsoon, and due to this disturbance of southwest monsoon, we have a disturbance. Due to this disturbance in the southwest monsoon, we have a net disturbance, student, in our cropping pattern as well. And once we are going to have a disturbance into the cropping pattern, you can easily realize, student, food inflation is going to be a problem. One more important point, Shaktikant Das was always correct when he used to say that our food inflation is also due to the lot of imported inflation factor. It was also due to a lot of imported inflation factor. We are a self-sufficient country in terms of the total agriculture production. We are producing good amount of Rabi and Kharif crops. So, but the nutrient-rich crops, our primary focus should be there. But look into the very fact that imported inflation are also wreaking havoc on our potential. How come? Number one, student, whenever there is going to be a war-like situation, natural gas price goes up. If natural gas price goes up, ammonia will have its own impact, and as a result of it, the fertilizer price will goes up. Number one. Number two, due to some excessive step taken by some countries in order to make sure that they are going to put some sanctions onto the export, then again it is going to create a problem. For example, couple of years ago, Indonesia decided to put an export ban on palm oil. it decided to put an export ban on palm oil. And I need not to explain you, irrespective people are saying कि हम olive oil खा रहे हैं और ये कर रहे हैं वो कर रहे हैं, but the fact of the matter is every single vegetable oil that we are consuming, every single liter of vegetable oil consuming, it's all been made up due to the palm oil itself. So palm oil export पर बैन लगा दिया तो vegetable oil student महंगा हो गया, will become expensive. And palm oil is very necessary for different type of beverages production, pastries production, cakes productions, different types of production in some chemical industries, in some toiletries industries. So palm oil has its own importance. So the moment you'll be going to have the imported inflation, in fact, it is going to have a net impact on India's food inflation as well. And due to some geopolitical tension, for example, Black Sea Grain Initiative. I hope you must have heard about it. Black Sea Grain Initiative was being discarded by Russia. So Black Sea Grain Initiative was a mutual understanding between Europe and Russia that whatever agriculture products are being laden onto the container from all the way from Black Sea to the littoral countries of the European continent, Russia will make sure that supply of wheat, supply of important agriculture commodities are not to be stopped. But in the name of war, they've decided to take some excessive step, and Black Sea Grain Initiative has been completely in tatters. So Black Sea Grain Initiative destruction put a huge amount of pressure on India to start exporting wheat, to European countries, because European countries were excessively dependent on Ukraine for the supply of wheat products. But due to the pressure of Russia, they were not having enough amount of wheat onto their hand, and they were start asking for India. And India was saying that we are already running Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, and as a result of it, our wheat is for our consumption first. So the matter ended up in WTO, agriculture subsidy issue, amber box subsidy issue. So one very important point is, student, our monetary policy is unbelievably dependent on CPI inflation. It is unbelievably dependent on food inflation, and to be very precise, it is been related to only one thing: controlling the food inflation in our country. But pattern is been changing. People are middle class families whose income have been increased. They are not the one who are only consuming food. Their disposable income is high. They are the net consumer of car, motorbike, so many different type of other stuff. They need to be given some sort of credit relaxation, but we can't have a selective credit relaxation for one community. So our monetary policies unnecessarily been too much dependent on CPI. My suggestion is they need to take a balance of WPI as well. WPI, CPI, and let's introduce producer price index as well. We need to have the introduction of producer price index as well. The moment we'll be going to have introduction of producer price index, it is definitely going to do more wonders. Definitely going to do more wonders, student. So again, a very relevant point, and therefore I believe CPI, WPI, and if in near future, Ramesh Chand committee has been appointed to review the base year of WPI, and there is a possibility that he may be going to recommend PPI as well. Like America, we'll be going to have a producer price index as well. We'll be going to have a producer price index as well as student. And it's very essential. I'm just sharing with you. It's very essential. We cannot get rid of food inflation in the near future. अब तो United Nation का जो FAO है, Food and Agriculture Organization, and FAO also published one data, Food and Price Index. And as per FAO Food and Price Index, India is a part of hunger hotspot. There are so many hunger hotspots in the world. Horn of Africa is hunger hotspot. Central and Western Africa is hunger hotspot. South Asia is hunger hotspot. And if our country is a part of hunger hotspot, due to the climatic events, due to the reduction in the soil moisture, and due to the excessive amount of chemical pollution in our soil. Soil pollution is one of the most urgent issue that need to be addressed. But unfortunately, these issues are not addressed. And if these issues are not addressed, हमारा रेपो रेट वही बढ़ा रहेगा. फूड इन्फ्लेशन के साथ बाकी चीज़ का एवरेज निकालने लगे तो ज़्यादा अच्छा रहेगा. विल बी गोइंग टू हैव मोर रियल पिक्चर. Otherwise, if it is going to get food inflation dependent, every 3-4 months, you'll be going to have a problem of food inflation. For example, look at prices of tomato, onion and potato. Have you ever heard any single year that price of tomato, onion and potato have not increased? Every year they have been increased. And farmers are not getting an adequate amount of product value for it. If I'm not wrong, MP is the number one state in tomato production. If I'm not wrong, I guess I am right over here. So tomato, onion, Maharashtra, potato I guess is Uttar Pradesh. So these three states are topmost producer and they produce in some bumper capacity. But our net consumption is very, very high. And every time there is going to be even a mild increase in tomato, onion and potato because it's a daily consumption product. So it's very necessary for us to make sure that our monetary policy also need to get rid of this thing. They've been doing a good job in terms of handling the CPI inflation, but CPI is too much dependent on food inflation. The basket need to be changed. CPI पे रहने दीजिए, basket change करिए. So basket need to be changed for WPI, need to be changed for CPI. Let's introduce PPI and of course the base year change as well. So these are the important discussion for our overall learning. Let's look into one more important area and then I will wind up today's session. Household. And one more important point, tomorrow and day after tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday I'm keeping off. Actually, I should not keep off on Saturday, but I have to this particular week student because I have to compile a lot of important economy articles so that by the time of last week, I'll be in a position to complete each and everything. So for compilation and for my preparation, I'm taking a week, Saturday and Sunday off. Ideally, it should be only Sunday off, but I have to take a week off for one extra day so that I can do all the compilation and having a pinpoint approach towards our preparation. So household consumption expenditure survey. So finally, household consumption expenditure survey has been released by the government, and for 2022 and 2023, as the name suggests, it is the household consumption, what the families are consuming. So this particular data actually gave us monthly per capita consumption expenditure. How much every family of 4 or 5 members is doing the consumption on a per capita basis. So this data actually suggests monthly per capita consumption expenditure. Please write monthly per capita consumption expenditure. Monthly per capita consumption expenditure, MPCE. And this MPCE is divided into two parts. Number one, without taking into account, this point is very essential, student. Just remember this particular point. Without taking into account items received free of cost. Items received free of cost from government, and with taking into account items received free of cost from government, because government is giving Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, Manrega scheme, Awas Yojana, cash distribution. So there are a lot of schemes under which people are getting cash onto their end. PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, and in MP you have Ladli Lakshmi Yojana, and every state these days has some sort of program under which the poor people are getting cash onto their hand. So monthly per capita expenditure is being calculated on two bases. Number one, without taking into account items received free of cost from government, with taking into account items received free of cost from the government, and based upon which there are some data which I want to write, which are essential one. Without taking into account rural area MPC is without, don't forget this particular point, without taking into account rural MPC and without taking into account urban MPCE. So let me write the figure. Without taking into account rural MPC is 4122. And without taking into account urban MPCE is 6966. Monthly per capita consumption expenditure. So without taking into account items received free of cost from government, rural area, urban area, 4122, 6966. And there are some with taking into account items received from government as well. So when we take with taking into account, so rural MPCE and urban MPCE. Rural MPCE is 4247 and urban MPCE is 7078. So this is what the consumption expenditure survey is all about. Consumption expenditure survey. These are the numbers, then I will give you the analysis for it. This is the consumption expenditure survey, household consumption expenditures. It was pending, it was a quinquennial survey. 5 साल में एक बार होना चाहिए. कराता कौन है? NSO. National Statistical Organization conducted the quinquennial survey and they've released this data. Now what are the results of it? What are the implications? What are the results of it? Let's look into it. So analysis of this particular part. Analysis of this particular student household consumption expenditure. Point number one, which I believe is truly correct. Student, the urban-rural gap. The urban-rural gap in monthly per capita consumption expenditure is reducing. It is definitely reducing. It is declining at a faster pace. It means the gap used to be in the year 2011-12 between the rural area consumption and the urban area consumption is getting reduced. It means urban economy is showing slight improvement. So that's absolutely true, student. The kind of facility we are witnessing in the rural area, they are also consuming the same data that I am consuming it right now. These days, the penetration of Amazons and Flipkarts and the e-commerce of the world has already been introduced over there. So they are also consuming the same sort of clothes that we are consuming over there. So overall, student, the net consumption difference is being reduced. It has been reduced on a regular basis. So if it has been reduced, then definitely this point need to be appreciated as well. That consumption inequality is also getting reduced. The net consumption inequality between the countries is also getting reduced. And one more point, rural area consumption on food, because one of the major remember Engel's law, one of the major component of consumption for rural area family is the food article, and the food article consumption is still very high, 47%, and for urban area it is 40%. It's quite natural, student. After all, first of all, we'll be going to do consumption on the essentiality of the families. So this is again a very important point. So rural area food consumption is having a major weightage of 47%, urban area 40%. One more important point, rural income is rising. Since urban-rural gap is decreasing, it means it's an indication that rural income is rising. If rural economy is going to have a real boost in the upcoming 10 years, it would be going to produce massive sunshine industries. So rural income is increasing, and there is a narrowing gap between the urban area and rural area when it comes to the income. So rural area and urban area are showing the gap reduction as been vindicated by the point number 1. And one more important point, rural income is showing increase. And why rural income is showing increase? Number 1, डिस्पोजेबल इनकम बच रही है. प्रधानमंत्री गरीब कल्याण योजना से राशन मिल जाता है, किसान सम्मान निधि से पैसा मिल जाता है, आवास योजना से घर बन जाता है, मनरेगा से काम मिल जाता है. So these schemes are showing a massive amount of on ground improvement. गरीब कल्याण अन्न योजना, PM किसान, PM आवास योजना, मनरेगा, and these days not conditional, in-kind cash transfer. And these days, lot of states are running in-kind cash transfer. These days, lot of states are running 2,000 rupees, 1,500 rupees to the women's in-kind cash transfer scheme. So this is again a very important point being suggested. This survey is also suggesting that it is also suggesting that rural infrastructure is increasing. Rural infrastructure is going in the right direction. It is increasing in a good rapid pace. But one thing is very sure, an alarming condition is income stagnation. People are a hell lot dependent upon the government services. Income stagnation is still a problem. Income stagnation is not a problem, it is basically the outcome. And why exactly? Because we all know, student, there is one concept in economics, the slack economy. And we are indeed a high slack economy, student. What do we mean slack economy? Slack economy means when labor and production companies are not being fully utilized. What is slack economy? जैसे कि रबी और खरीफ क्रॉप्स के बीच का जो पॉइंट होता है, टाइम होता है, उसमें स्लैक इकोनॉमी ज़्यादा बढ़ जाती है. When labor are not working, production companies are not working, it's a period of slack economy, no improvement, not doing any production. So India is having a major problem of slack economy because most of the laborers in our country are basically doing the seasonal jobs, either in the agriculture field or other. They are doing the seasonal job. And of course, student production companies also doing production not round the clock but depending upon the situation. So we have a slack economy situation, and due to this we have a problem of income stagnation. At the same time, there is one problem with this survey which is suggesting that people from vulnerable social groups are still having a poor MPCE. Vulnerable social group people, their monthly per capita consumption expenditure is still very less. People from scheduled tribe, scheduled caste, OBC community, they still have a problem. And we also have a problem of disguised unemployment. Too much dependent on government resources, and we have a problem of disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment means they are working, but they are doing no skills. They are working like no skills job. They don't have skills, which is basically a type of unemployment itself because they cannot increase their skills and cannot increase their income. And due to inflation over a period of time, they have to net dependent onto the government itself. These are the suggestions, and one important thing that is being a net outcome of the monthly per capita consumption expenditure is it's the right time for us to change our poverty estimate. It's very important, student. We need to change our poverty estimate. It's a very essential thing that we need to change our poverty estimate. Enough of Rangarajan, Tendulkar and Lakdawala recommendations. Enough of this mixed reference period and modify mixed reference period, MRP and MMRP. We need to put our primary focus onto the change over the poverty estimate itself. So keep this thing for your home assignment, that whatever poverty estimate formula that you have gone through in your economy preparation, just revise it. So we've covered so many issues in today's session. Divergence between real GDP and nominal GDP, finished it. I've covered this one. Base year I've covered, base year WPI covered, food inflation I've covered, and middle income trap I've covered, household consumption expenditure I've covered. That's it for today's session. If any query, you can always ask me. You can message me and you can always ask me. That's it for today's session. I'll see you on